The human Grand Zoo opened its gates early in the morning, and crowds poured in like a slow river of footsteps and laughter. The sun was bright, the sky was clear, and the whole place buzzed with excitement. Families walked around with snacks, children pointed at animals, and cameras clicked everywhere. But on this day, there was something new. Something strange. Something that made people lower their voices and hush one another. At the far end of the zoo, past the reptile house and the bird valley, stood a large round building covered in metal plates. A new sign was placed in front of it, printed in bold red letters: New Exhibit Specimen X47, Dangerous. Do not approach. People gathered around the door, curious, whispering, and guessing what might be inside. Some thought it was a strange creature from deep space. Others joked that it was probably a failed lab experiment. No one truly knew. Inside the dim building was a huge glass cage with thick metal frames. Bright white lights shone down from above, making the inside feel cold and empty. Inside this cage sat a small alien girl. Her skin was pale silver, smooth like polished stone. Her hair was soft and thin, almost glowing under the lights. But the most striking thing about her were her eyes, large, round, shining like the eyes of a kitten that had lost its mother. They were full of fear and confusion, as if she did not understand why she was trapped here. She sat curled in the corner of the glass room, hugging her knees. Every time a group of visitors walked by, she jumped a little. She did not roar. She did not hiss. She did not attack the glass. She only stared at them with silent, trembling eyes. People watched her the same way they watched animals, curious and entertained. Some even laughed softly, thinking she looked harmless and cute. They did not care that she was scared. They did not wonder how she came here. To them, she was just an exhibit, something new to look at. Outside the building, a young human man named Evan Holt walked through the zoo, carrying a bag of tools over his shoulder. He worked as a mechanic for the zoo's air systems and electric lines. Evan had been called because of a broken pipe near the reptile house, but he took a wrong turn and ended up in front of the mysterious new building. He frowned at the warning sign. Dangerous? Looks like someone's trying too hard to get attention, he muttered. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cold air brushed over his face. The building was quiet. Too quiet. Evan walked forward, not knowing what he would see. He expected some strange alien animal, maybe with claws or horns. Maybe something big and angry, but what he saw made him stop in his tracks. The alien girl, small, fragile, alone, and staring right at him. Evan felt something twist inside his chest. Those large kitten-like eyes were full of fear. And something else. Something he could not name. The girl pressed back against the glass, shaking. She looked like she was trying to become smaller, to disappear. Evan slowly stepped closer, careful not to scare her. The girl watched him the whole time, her breathing fast and shallow. There were bruises on her arms, dark marks that looked like someone had grabbed her too hard. Her wrists had faint red lines from metal restraints. Her feet were chained lightly to the floor, not enough to hurt her, but enough to keep her from moving more than a few steps. Evan felt a slow anger rise in him. This was not an animal. This was a child. He looked around and saw the sign standing beside her cage. Specimen X47. Unknown species. Hostile potential. Hostile? Evan looked back at the trembling girl and felt almost sick. She was terrified, not dangerous. He stepped even closer and whispered, as if speaking to a frightened animal, "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you." The girl blinked. Her trembling slowed. She tilted her head slightly, studying his face. Then, slowly, she lifted one small hand and touched the glass. Her fingers were thin and delicate, almost glowing with a faint blue light. Evan hesitated, then raised his own hand and placed it on the glass opposite hers. Her eyes widened softly, full of shock and hope. At that moment, something passed between them, something silent but powerful. A connection, a plea, a question. Will you help me? Before Evan could speak, a guard at the door shouted, "Hey! Step away from the specimen." Evan pulled his hand back, but the image of those lost kitten eyes stayed in his mind like a burning mark. As he walked out, one thought refused to leave him. She is not a specimen. She is a person. Evan could not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the alien girl again, her silver skin, her shaking body, and especially her eyes. Those big, glowing, kitten-like eyes kept returning to his mind. Soft and full of quiet fear, he tossed and turned, but sleep refused to come. He finally sat up and whispered to himself, "She was looking at me like she trusted me." The thought shocked him. Why would she trust a human? How many people had walked past her cage and stared at her like she was nothing? How long had she been alone in that cold glass room? Evan didn't know the answers, but he knew one thing very clearly. He had to go back, a return he could not resist. The next morning, Evan arrived at the zoo early, much earlier than he was supposed to. He told the guard at the gate that he was checking the electric lines again. The guard nodded without question. Everyone knew Evan as the quiet worker who fixed things no one else wanted to touch. But today, he wasn't here to fix pipes or wires. He walked straight toward the metal building at the edge of the zoo. His heart beat faster with every step. Part of him wondered if the girl would remember him. Another part of him feared she would be gone. When he entered the building, the cold air hit him once again. The lights were bright, the floors clean, but the place felt heavy, like the air itself carried sadness. He saw the alien girl sitting in the corner of her cage, her knees pulled to her chest. She looked tired, even more tired than yesterday. Her head was down, as if she had given up. Evan stepped closer, and the sound of his boots made her lift her gaze. Her eyes widened the moment she saw him. She did remember. Slowly, she stood up and walked toward the glass. Her steps were small and careful, like she was afraid the ground might break under her feet. Evan smiled softly and raised his hand in greeting. But he kept it low so she did not feel pressured. She came closer and placed her small hand against the glass again, right over the spot where their hands had touched yesterday. But today, she tapped the glass twice. A soft, deliberate sound. Tap, tap. Evan blinked. Was she trying to talk to him? The girl tilted her head, waiting. Then she tapped again. Tap, tap. Evan slowly copied the sound with his fingers. Tap, tap. The girl's eyes brightened, just a little but enough that Evan felt warmth spread in his chest. It was the first real response she had gotten from someone. A silent language for several minutes. They spoke through simple taps. Sometimes she tapped 3 times. Sometimes 1. Sometimes she pressed her hand flat against the glass and looked at him as if asking a question. Evan tried to follow her rhythm. He smiled when she became excited and tapped quickly, almost like a small child learning something new. Then she did something unexpected. She stepped back from the glass and slowly lowered herself onto the floor. She pressed her forehead gently against the glass and closed her eyes. Evan stared, confused. Was she hurt? Was she scared? Then he remembered something he had read long ago in a science news article. Some alien species show trust by offering the top of their head. It means, I do not fear you. I trust you not to harm me. Evan's heart tightened. She was showing him trust. He knelt down on his side of the glass and placed his hand softly against it, near her head. She opened her eyes, saw him there, and a tiny breath escaped her lips, a soft, trembling sound. She wasn't speaking, not in words, but she was communicating the only way she could. The guard interruption, just when the moment felt peaceful. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. A guard entered, holding a tablet and chewing gum loudly. He looked annoyed and bored. When he saw Evan kneeling near the glass, he scowled. Hey, What did I tell you yesterday? The guard barked. No close contact. You're way too near the specimen. The girl flinched and backed away, fear returning instantly. Evan clenched his fists but stayed calm. She's scared, he said quietly. You don't need to shout. The guard rolled his eyes. Keep your distance. That thing is unpredictable. Thing. The word cut into Evan like a knife. He looked at the girl, her slim shoulders trembling. Her hands curling close to her chest. She was no thing. She was alone. Frightened and trapped, when Evan turned to leave. Her soft eyes followed him, full of silent pleading. He could feel it clearly, now she needed him. And he could not walk away. The next day, Evan arrived even earlier than before. The sun had barely risen, and most zoo workers were still drinking their morning coffee. He had no reason to be here so soon, no task assigned, no electrical problem to fix. But something heavy pulled him back to that lonely metal building. Evan carried a small cloth bag with him. Inside it were pieces of soft fruit, bread, and a bottle of water. He had no idea what the alien girl ate, but he couldn't stand the thought of her starving or living only on whatever the zoo dropped into her cage. When he pushed open the door, the familiar cold air washed over him. But today there was a strange sound echoing inside, a soft whimper, almost like a cry. Evan's heart tightened. And he hurried toward the glass cage. The girl was sitting on the floor. Her knees pulled up, her hands covering her ears. Her shoulders shook each time she breathed. She didn't notice Evan at first. She was lost in fear, lost in whatever nightmare had trapped her mind. Then she looked up. Her eyes widened. A tiny spark of relief appeared in them. Evan knelt by the glass and placed his hand there. She slowly crawled toward him, still shaking, and placed her hand against his dot. Her skin glowed faintly blue, just like before. Evan whispered, I brought something for you. He lifted the cloth bag. The girl tilted her head, trying to understand. He took out a piece of fruit and held it close to the glass. The girl's eyes brightened, and she pressed her hand to the glass with more energy. She was hungry. Evan looked at the top of her cage, where a small square opening, barely big enough for a hand, was built into the metal frame. It was a feeding port. Usually guards pushed in dry pellets or nutrient blocks. He opened the port and carefully placed the fruit inside. The girl reached up slowly, and then jumped back as if expecting pain. Evan frowned. Why did she react like that? He whispered, It's okay. It won't hurt you. The girl hesitated, then reached into the port and grabbed the fruit. She smelled it first, then took a small bite. Her eyes softened. She ate with small, careful bites, as if food was something rare and precious for her. The sad truth revealed while she ate. Evan looked around the building for the first time with purpose. He had come every day, but only now did he pay attention to the details. There were other cages, some empty, some holding creatures he had never seen before. Strange shapes, different colors, some with wings, some with shells. But all of them were locked behind glass and metal. Each cage had a sign. Captured during Operation Star Sweep. Rare alien life form. For study only. Unknown species. Dangerous. 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 It seemed to be the only word the zoo used. But none of these creatures looked dangerous. They looked scared. They looked like prisoners. In the corner of the room, Evan noticed a clipboard lying on a desk. He shouldn't look at it, he knew that, but something pushed him to read. He picked it up. The first page said, Specimen X47, female, estimated age, young adolescent. Captured after crash site recovery. No signs of aggression. Vocal communication weak. Emotional distress high. Evan's chest tightened. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't dangerous. They knew it. And they still locked her up like an animal. Anger spread through him. A deep, heavy anger he had never felt before. A silent plea. Evan returned to the girl. She had finished the fruit and now held the little seed in her palm, staring at it like it was something beautiful. She pressed it gently against her chest as if it reminded her of something important. Then she reached beside her and picked up a broken necklace. Its chain was snapped in the middle, and a tiny charm dangled at the end. She held it up to the glass. It was shaped like a small creature, big-eyed, soft-looking, almost like a tiny pet. Evan understood immediately. A baby creature. A companion. Maybe her family. The girl tapped the necklace twice, then pointed to the empty air, then tapped again. Evan watched her movements closely. She was telling them something. He whispered, "You lost someone, didn't you?" Her eyes filled with sorrow. She pressed her forehead to the glass. Evan breathed out slowly. She wasn't only scared. She was grieving, and she was alone in a cage, without home, without safety, without the small creature she cared for. He placed his hand against the glass. "I promise," he whispered, voice steady. "I will help you. I'll get you out of here." The girl opened her eyes and stared at him, not with fear this time, but with fragile hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope meant responsibility. Hope meant action. And as Evan looked into her shining kitten-like eyes, he knew one thing. He couldn't turn back now. Evan knew something had changed inside him. Before meeting the alien girl, he lived a simple, quiet life. Wake up, fix machines, go home, sleep, repeat. He never broke rules, never questioned orders, never fought anyone. He was just an ordinary man. But now, every step he took felt heavier. Every breath felt loaded with responsibility. He had made a promise, and promises have weight. Late evening. A new goal. After the zoo closed for the day, Evan didn't go home immediately. Instead, he walked through the empty maintenance hallways, remembering every guard he saw, every camera he passed, every locked door he had to swipe his badge through. He needed to understand the zoo from the inside. He needed to know its weaknesses. He stopped near a metal door marked Security and Power Station, authorized staff only. This room controlled everything: lights, locks, alarms, cages. A night guard sat inside, half asleep, watching a small screen. The guard didn't even notice Evan walking past the window. Evan felt a chill. The security here wasn't careful. The zoo trusted its systems too much. This was good for him, but bad for the girl. He continued walking until he reached a quiet corner behind the alien exhibit building. Here, no visitors came. No guards patrolled. Only old pipes and humming machines filled the space. He crouched down and pulled tools from his bag. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the dangerous idea forming in his mind. He was going to break her out, planning the impossible. Evan knew the girl's cage wasn't normal glass. It wasn't something you could break with a hammer or melt with heat. It was a special energy field glass made to hold strong alien creatures. But he had noticed something earlier that most people would ignore: a maintenance port. Small, square, easy to overlook. But that port connected to the cage's energy lines. If he could interrupt those lines, just for a moment, the field would drop. He took a deep breath and began to sketch in his notebook a quick drawing of the cage. The port, the wires he remembered, the panel above it. The emergency shut-off dial hidden behind the supply closet. It looked messy, but he understood it. The girl's silent encouragement. Before he could continue planning, he heard a soft tapping. Tap. Tap. Evan looked up. The alien girl was awake inside her cage, her face pressed against the glass. She watched him from the inside of the exhibit building. They were separated by thick glass walls and a locked metal gate, but somehow she always sensed when he was near. Evan smiled and walked to her. He knelt beside the glass. "You can sense me, can't you?" he whispered. She touched the glass slowly, her fingers glowing faintly blue. She pointed at the maintenance port, then at Evan's bag of tools. Evan blinked. Did she understand what he was doing? The girl pressed her forehead against the glass and closed her eyes. A soft light grew from her skin, not bright but calm, as if she was telling him, "I trust you. I believe you can help." Evan felt something warm spread in his chest. This small, fragile being trusted him more than anyone else in the universe. He whispered, "I'll get you out. But I need time. And I need to be careful." She tapped the glass once, slow and soft. A gesture of agreement. A noise in the night suddenly. A loud alarm echoed through the zoo. A high, sharp sound. Evan shot to his feet. Red lights flashed across the walls. Metal gates began to close. Guards shouted in the distance, "What's happening?" Evan whispered. He rushed to a window and looked outside. Chaos. Visitors were gone, but workers were running. Guards held rifles. Drones flew overhead, scanning the grounds. A voice shouted through the speakers, "Containment breach. Alien specimen in Sector B has escaped. All units respond." Evan froze. Another alien had gotten loose. That meant the guards would be distracted, that it was both a danger and an opportunity. He sprinted back to the girl's cage. She was pressed against the glass, trembling with fear. The flashing red lights made her look even smaller, even more vulnerable. Evan placed both hands on the glass. "It's okay," he whispered. "They aren't coming for you. Not now. The chaos gives us time." The girl reached up and touched his hand through the glass. Her eyes locked onto his with a depth he had never seen before. In her eyes, he saw trust. In her eyes, he saw hope. And in her eyes, he saw a silent message: "Hurry, before it's too late." Evan looked at the maintenance port again. He had tools. He had a moment of distraction. He had a promise to keep. Tonight, the real plan would begin. The zoo remained loud with alarms, flashing lights, and shouting guards. Workers hurried across the walkways, and security drones scanned every corner. The entire place felt alive with panic. But inside the alien exhibit building, everything was strangely quiet. Too quiet. Evan stood before the girl's glass cage, breathing fast. His heart pounded like it wanted to break out of his chest. His hands trembled, not from fear of what he was about to do, but from the fear of failing the one person who needed him most. The alien girl pressed her face against the glass, her silver hair falling like soft threads around her cheeks. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, reflecting the red alarms outside. She looked frightened but also hopeful, more hopeful than when Evan first saw her. She knew something was about to happen, and Evan knew it too. A final look around. He hurried to the maintenance port, small, square, and bolted into the wall near the bottom corner of the cage. Evan knelt down and unpacked a tiny metal tool he had been secretly building. It wasn't a weapon. It was simple, a compact device made from old wiring and spare battery cells. It produced a shortwave electric pulse strong enough to interrupt the energy field of the cage for a few seconds. Just a few seconds. It would have to be enough. Before using it, Evan checked the surroundings. The building was empty. No guards, no scientists, no workers. All had run toward the other sector where the alien creature had escaped. This was their moment. Evan looked at the girl one last time. "Are you ready?" he whispered. She nodded slowly, pressing her hand against the glass. Her eyes shone brighter, like a spark inside her was waking up, interrupting the grid. Evan pulled off the maintenance port's cover. Inside were tangled wires that hummed with energy. The sound was low but constant, like a sleeping machine breathing quietly. He took a deep breath and pressed the pulse device into the wiring. 3, 2. Before he could say 1, the girl tapped the glass twice, soft, calm, reassuring. Tap, tap. As if saying, "I trust you." Evan nodded. Double quotes 1. He pressed the button. The pulse shot through the wires. A sharp crackle filled the air. Sparks jumped like tiny glowing insects. The lights around the cage flickered once, twice, then flashed brightly. The girl stepped back, eyes wide. Evan held his breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, The cage barrier went dark. The humming stopped. The glow faded. The energy field vanished. A clear silence fell over the room. Evan stared. He had done it. The girl was free. Her first step out. The alien girl moved slowly, as if she feared the invisible wall might still be there. She lifted her hand and reached toward where the glass had been. Her fingers passed through empty air. No barrier. She gasped softly and stepped forward on shaky legs. The faint blue glow under her skin flickered from shock and excitement. Then she crossed the line where the cage wall once was. Her foot touched the floor outside. For the first time since her capture, she was no longer trapped. She trembled and looked at Evan, her eyes soft and wet, shining with something like gratitude, or the closest her species could show. Evan felt his throat tighten. "You're out," he whispered. "You're really out." The girl stumbled slightly, unused to walking freely. Evan caught her gently by the arm before she could fall. Her skin was warm and gave off a faint pulse of light when she felt his touch, but the moment was short-lived. A heavy metallic slam echoed down the hallway. Evan's head jerked toward the door. The director appears. Tall figure entered the room, broad-shouldered, wearing a long black coat. His cold smile appeared before his voice. It was the zoo director. His eyes locked onto the girl standing outside her cage. "Well," he said slowly, clapping his hands once, "isn't this a surprise?" The girl flinched and hid behind Evan. Evan stepped forward, shielding her. "She's not an animal," Evan said, his voice shaking with anger. "She shouldn't be caged. She shouldn't be here at all." The director laughed. "You know how valuable she is? That creature is worth more than this whole zoo." He pointed at her without any sign of respect. "She belongs behind glass, not wandering freely." The girl trembled, clutching Evan's shirt. The director raised his voice. "Guards! Specimen X-47 is loose. Contain her immediately." The girl gasped and grabbed Evan's arm. Running toward the unknown. Evan didn't think. He acted. He grabbed the girl's hand. "Run!" They sprinted toward the back exit, the one Evan discovered during his earlier planning. Their footsteps echoed loudly on the metal floor. The girl struggled to keep up, but she held tight to his hand. Behind them, the director shouted, "Stop them! Don't let them escape!" Guards were coming. Drones were waking. The zoo was closing its jaws, but Evan didn't look back. Not now. Not when freedom was finally so close. The girl looked at him with those glowing, kitten-like eyes full of trust and fear. Together, they ran into the unknown. Evan and the alien girl ran through the dim hallway, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls. Behind them, alarms screamed louder than ever. Red lights flashed, turning the halls into a maze of shadows and fear. The girl clung to Evan's hand with surprising strength for someone so small. Her breathing was fast, uneven, scared, but she did not let go. Not even once. Evan's heart hammered in his chest. He knew the guards would be close behind. He also knew the director would not give up easily. They reached a back door at the far end of the building. Evan shoved it open, and a blast of cold night wind hit them. Outside, the zoo grounds looked strange in the flashing red lights, like a battlefield instead of a place for visitors. They ran across the grass, passing dark enclosures and silent animal exhibits. The night sky above them was wide and full of stars. For a brief second, Evan wondered if one of those stars was her home, but there was no time for thinking. The guards had seen them. There. Someone shouted, "Stop them!" A spotlight beam swept across the ground. Boots thundered behind them. A drone whirred loudly overhead. The girl stumbled, letting out a small gasp. Evan immediately caught her before she fell. She looked up at him, breathless, her eyes glowing even brighter now, almost flickering. "Come on," Evan said softly. "We're not far." He didn't know if that was true. But hope was all they had, cut off as they reached the outer path. 3 guards rushed in from the left side, blocking their way. Evan pulled the girl in the opposite direction. But more guards ran in from the right. They were surrounded. The director appeared behind the guards, his cold smile visible even in the dim lighting. "There's nowhere to go, Mr. Holt," he said. "Turn the creature in, and I might consider letting you keep your job." Evan felt the girl tremble behind him. He stepped closer, shielding her with his body. "She's not a creature," Evan said through clenched teeth. "She's a child. And you're hurting her." The director's smile vanished. "You're a mechanic," he said sharply. "A nobody. You don't understand the value of what you're throwing away." He raised his hand and gave a sharp command. "Take her." Guards moved forward. The girl cried out and pressed herself against Evan, her hands glowing brighter now, almost white. Evan held her tightly. He whispered, "It's okay. I'm here." Then something happened. Something no one expected. The girl's hidden ability. The girl lifted both her hands toward the nearest drone. Her eyes shone like tiny moons, bright and trembling. A soft humming sound filled the air, gentle at first, then rising. A wave of pale light burst from her palms. It wasn't sharp. It wasn't violent. It was soft, like a ripple of calm wind. But the drone above them shuddered, sparks shooting from its sides. Its lights flickered. Then it crashed into the ground with a loud metallic thud. Every guard froze. Even Evan stared in shock. The girl blinked, her eyes dimming again. The glow around her hands faded into silver sparkles. She looked at Evan with a worried face, as if she feared he would be frightened of her. But Evan wasn't afraid. He whispered, "You're amazing." The girl's eyes softened. The guards regained their senses and rushed forward, shouting. Evan grabbed the girl's hand again and ran toward a narrow maintenance gate between 2 buildings. One he had noticed only once before. The girl used her faint light again to confuse another drone, giving them precious seconds to slip past the guards. A reunion in the shadows. They sprinted across a row of bushes and reached the forested area behind the zoo. The trees were dark and thick, hiding them from sight. But before Evan could catch his breath, he heard a small squeak. The girl froze. She slowly turned, her head toward the sound. Another squeak. Soft, high, familiar, the girl gasped. Her hands shot to her chest, where she had carried the broken necklace charm of a big-eyed creature. She stepped toward the bushes, trembling. Evan followed quietly. In the shadows, a tiny creature peered out. Its eyes were large and glowing, like hers. Its fur was soft and dark. It made a small cry, the same sound as the charm she carried. The girl dropped to her knees, tears filling her eyes. The small creature ran into her arms immediately, nuzzling against her chest and clinging tightly. She held it close, shaking with joy and relief. Her blue glow brightened, warm and gentle. Evan watched in awe. "This is your little one," he whispered. "Your companion." She nodded, hugging the small creature with both arms. The creature licked her cheek, and she let out a soft, trembling laugh, the first laugh Evan had ever heard from her. But their joy lasted only a few seconds. The director's voice echoed from behind the trees. "They're in the woods. Don't let them escape." The girl looked at Evan, fear returning. But now she was not alone. Evan reached out a hand. "Let's go," he said firmly. "Now we run together." The girl took his hand and held the small creature close, and together, under the dark forest sky, they ran deeper into the shadows toward whatever destiny waited next. The forest behind the human Grand Zoo was dark and thick, full of twisted branches and cold air. Night insects sang around them, and every sound felt louder than it should. But Evan didn't slow down. He held the alien girl's hand tightly as he ran, and she held her little creature close against her chest. Behind them came shouts, crashing branches, and the steady beat of boots. The guards were coming. The director was coming. They wanted the girl back no matter the cost. Evan guided her through the trees as fast as possible. He knew every second counted now. "Stay close," he whispered, even though she already was. The girl nodded, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dark. The small creature clung to her shoulder, its big shining eyes watching everything. They reached a slope that led down to an old service road used by zoo trucks. Evan had parked his rusty cargo truck there earlier. Hidden by bushes, it was their only chance. A last stand at the road as they reached the bottom of the slope. Lights burst behind them, flashlights, drones. Angry footsteps. The director's voice echoed through the night. "Stop running. You can't hide from us." Evan grabbed the thick branch from the ground and stood in front of the girl protectively. He was no fighter. He had never held a weapon. But right now, he would stand against anything if it meant protecting her. The girl touched his back gently, her glowing eyes filled with worry. She didn't want him to fight. She didn't want him hurt. Evan whispered, "I won't let them take you." She clutched her little creature closer. Its small body trembled, but its eyes never left Evan. Somehow, even the tiny creature believed in him. The guards appeared through the trees, forming a half circle around them. Their stun rifles hummed with electric charge. Drones hovered above, ready to strike. The director stepped forward, his face full of anger. "This ends now," he said coldly. "You can't protect her. She's property of the zoo." Evan felt a hot wave of anger flare inside him. "She's not property," he growled. "She's a child. She's alive. She feels fear. She feels pain. She has someone who loves her." The girl looked up at him with wide, trembling eyes full of gratitude. But the director didn't care. "Take them both," he ordered. "And don't be gentle with the man." The guards raised their rifles. The girl stepped in front of Evan before he could react. She held her little creature tight, but she spread her arms slightly as if trying to protect Evan with her small body. Her eyes began to glow brighter than ever before. Her silver skin shimmered with pale blue light. The air around her hummed gently. The guards hesitated. The director shouted, "Stop staring and shoot." A rifle fired a sharp, electric bolt aimed straight at Evan. The girl let out a soft cry and extended her glowing hand. A wall of shimmering light burst from her palm, spreading like ripples over water. The electric bolt hit it and vanished. The guards stepped back in shock. The girl's power grew stronger, brighter. The trees lit up with silver blue light. The ground shimmered. And for the first time since she was captured, she didn't look scared. She looked brave. Evan stared at her in awe. "You're protecting us," he whispered. She looked at him with gentle eyes and nodded. Another guard tried to fire. Another bolt vanished in the light. The director finally shouted, "Retreat! Back up! Don't get too close!" But it was too late. The girl took a deep breath, holding her little creature close, and released one final wave of light, soft, warm, and full of calm energy. It washed over the guards, over the drones, even over the director. Not harming them, just pushing them back, like a gentle wind telling them to stay away. The forest fell completely silent. Escape at dawn when the light faded. The girl stumbled from exhaustion. Evan caught her in his arms. The little creature licked her cheek worriedly. "You did amazing," Evan whispered. "Let's go home." He lifted her gently and carried her to the truck. The sky above them was turning pale, the first sign of dawn. They climbed inside, and Evan started the engine with shaking hands. The girl leaned on his shoulder, tired but safe. Her little creature curled into her lap, purring softly. As they drove away, the city lights appeared in the distance. For the first time, the girl saw something other than cages and cold walls. She saw open roads, free skies, and a world that didn't look like a prison. She placed her small hand on Evan's arm and whispered, her voice weak but clear, "Thank you." Evan smiled. "No," he said softly. "Thank you for trusting me." They drove toward the sunrise, toward freedom. toward hope, toward a future that no cage could hold. And in that golden morning light, one truth stood bright and clear. Sometimes the strongest thing in the universe is simple human kindness.